Even with some of the backups in, Penn State makes quick and easy work of Rutgers in the Bryce Jordan Center, 35-3. It's been long overdue. I've been waiting to see this Penn State wrestling team be challenged in some capacity. They're finally going to get that very soon when they face the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Penn State fans? That is right. You are Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, bringing you all things Penn State sports coverage. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more is a winner. It's that simple. It's that easy. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And if you're not already, become an everyday or subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports. Talking football, more than just football, recruiting, men's basketball, men's hockey, wrestling. This is a wrestling episode here as Penn State defeats Rutgers 35-3. Penn State had an incredible showing, and it was nothing else was going to be expected from me in this case. And I'm going to go through the bouts based on how I thought the performances individually went. So starting with Aaron Brooks, working my way down the list to Aaron Cael from a best to worst type of situation here. So, and I lead off with Aaron Brooks. The opponent wasn't exactly high caliber for Aaron Brooks at 197, but it's his final duel. It was his final match in the Bryce Jordan Center. And I want to give Aaron Brooks his flowers in this case because Brooks finished with a pin, minute and 45 seconds, started to cap off the dual meet in that sense. And it really is that kind of moment that part of it is, what you work for as a Penn State wrestler. There's all the other extracurricular stuff. There's the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, but it's part of that. It's that dominance. It's that full circle moment where Aaron Brooks has now had a long, successful career at Penn State, and to encapsulate it with one match, one final time in the Bryce Jordan Center, and you get a pin to start to lead your way to go out on top. I know there's more. There's the Big Ten Conference. There's the Big Ten Conference tournament. There's the NCAA tournament, of course, and those ones are going to be more important to Aaron Brooks. But in that kind of setting, in front of a sellout crowd, incredible atmosphere at the Bryce Jordan Center. I know they don't do that many dual meets, but that's why it's so special because of this. Even on a Monday, the wrestling fans were in full force to support the Nittany Lions. So to see Aaron Brooks finish off what he had started when he began his Penn State career, that is why I put that one at the top in this case, because there were nothing short of other dominant, impressive performances here. So this is really just because Aaron Brooks as a whole deserves the recognition over the course of his career with the Nittany Lions, and just a very fitting finish for him. It wasn't a close. It wasn't, okay, well, he had a good decisive victory. No, it was a pin in under 2 minutes. I want to move to Lucas Cochran. Lucas Cochran is the backup to Aaron Brooks at 197. And he picks up a victory at heavyweight. I don't want to say surprisingly enough in this case, because since he's the backup at 197 and Aaron Brooks is there, well, that's where he's wrestled in other tournaments and he's won those tournaments at that weight. So 197, when Aaron Brooks does leave, is in good hands with Cochran. However, when Greg Kirkle's out of the lineup, we've seen Cochran wrestle in that heavyweight spot. Why that is significant is because he is giving up a significant amount of weight. So you're not going to be able to fluctuate weights from 197 all the way, maybe a few pounds here and there. Again, I never wrestled. I'm not afraid to admit that. I enjoy the sport. I like spectating. I like watching. I like analyzing it. But for Cochran, just because of a natural healthy body, you're not going to be able to go from 197 to something like 215 and 220. So I imagine that maybe he's putting on a little bit of weight when there is a plan to get him in at heavyweight. But oh my goodness, for Cochran to win, to defeat his opponent, who was ranked number 8 in the entire country, and that's just it. It was a decisive victory, close. It was 7-3, but that is the number 8 heavyweight in the entire nation. You go in as the backup at 197. You move up to heavyweight, so it's not like he's going from 184 to 197 or 174 to 184, where you're giving about maybe 5 or 10 pounds. There's the assumption here that Cochran's giving up about, what, 50, 60 pounds in this case, and he won the way he did. That's why. So after Aaron Brooks, this is arguably the best match, the most entertaining match of the night because of what Cochran has been able to do. It's more than just giving up 5 to 10 pounds. It's giving up 50 to 60 pounds and winning convincingly against a top 10 ranked wrestler. So if there were any concerns, well, what's Penn State going to do after Aaron Brooks? Cochran right there has solved all of the problems. Moved to Levi Haynes at 157. And this was the other pin. I would rank this third on the list in this case. Again, just another instance of I'm a fan of pins. And to do it in just about 90 seconds here, I know the competition was not up to Levi Haynes's bar. However, just makes quick work. Again, just kind of reminds Rutgers, hey, you're barely in the top 15. Penn State is the number 1 wrestling team. And Levi Haynes just so quick, so dominant, and able to find a weakness in the opponent, Dylan Weaver, who he went up against, and just take advantage of that and get the fall in due time. Now, there were some other impressive performances, of course, still to go through all of them. And I also do want to talk about what happened with Aaron Nagao and the only loss on Penn State's side in the dual meet, but what we saw from another backup as well, starting in the lineup for the Rutgers dual meet, Mitchell Messenbrink, Tyler Kasak. First-year wrestlers at Penn State continue to have this stretch, this run that is really unprecedented almost with the way that Penn State is able to get the most out of its young wrestlers here. We're going to discuss that coming up next after the break. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Get your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers will get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And the Locked On Podcast Network is making history. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now you can find it on Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, and now you can find it on Amazon Fire TV. Back to recapping the dual meet against Rutgers, and I'll go to the next matchup on the list that just stood out to me, and it was Terrell Barraclaw. Barraclaw is a very talented wrestler in his own right at 174, but Carter Starachi exists. And Carter Starachi, who has the streak of 62 matches in a row, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue why Barraclaw is not in the, or should be in the lineup when there are just not that many available spots. Could he move up to 184? Well, you have Bernie Truax there, right? And then 165, Mitchell Messenbrink comes in. So Barraclaw, I would say it's very respectable that he stuck it out as long as he has. He must enjoy Penn State. He must like wrestling under Cael Sanderson, because he could start at so many other institutions for so many other programs. So this is another case. Like Aaron Brooks, I think Barraclaw deserves his flowers going up against a top 15 wrestler in Turley of Rutgers. And that one was difficult. It was back and forth. It was low scoring. These are two defensive wrestlers. And Barraclaw to not back down, to know that he was in this matchup the entire way through. And remember, he had 11-2 record going into this one as well. So it's not like Barraclaw was struggling. I know that his career hasn't gone exactly the way that other Penn State standouts have. But this is what I mean. When you go up against a ranked opponent and you're still able to look, you are showing that there is no drop off when the starter is out of the lineup in Carter Starachi. But it's the way that Barraclaw won. Barraclaw ends up reversing Turley, taking that lead, and then using riding time and just finishing off the third period. I mean, Turley looked gassed. He looked exhausted. He looked totally wiped out by the end of that dual meet. And Barraclaw just did what he did best as a defensive wrestler and just controlled his opponent when it mattered most in those final 2 minutes. So that would be my fourth matchup, where that would be the fourth best matchup that Penn State had in this one. I'll move to Mitchell Messenbrink because he just continues to dominate, and the tech fall and just, it is so exciting to watch Mitchell Messenbrink wrestle. He's an offensive technician. I've already said that before, and I'll say it again. I'll continue to say it. Someone who's in his first year at Penn State, second year of collegiate wrestling as a redshirt freshman. And again, we need to see better competition. And that's not my point here in the fact of, well, he's still unproven. He hasn't proven himself. Look what he's done to Mikey Caliendo. Look what he did in his matchups against Michigan and Michigan State when those were comparable wrestlers. And those were wrestlers inside the top 10, and those performances that he had, that is more than enough for me to know that Mitchell Messenbrink is at least getting to the semifinals in the NCAA championships. The everydayers know that I've said this a lot. If you're new to the show, and you're hearing this for the first time, I can all but guarantee that if Mitchell Messenbrink continues to wrestle the way that he is, he will get to the semifinals. And this tech fall, getting the near fall points at the end just to finish it off. So it was really the difference of a matter of probably a couple square inches from the shoulder blades tapping the mat, but he gets the tech fall. And that's why it's just Mitchell Messenbrink is allowed to wrestle the way he wants to. And I think that's what is the coolest thing about his game, is that he dictates the pace, and it's this quick, aggressive, and it's not overly aggressive. It's coordinated. And that's what's so fun about it. And the 3-point takedown helps as well, which benefits him immensely. But just, this is why they made the change for the 3-point takedown for wrestlers like Mitchell Messenbrink, to open up the game, open up the sport of wrestling, and make it this exciting. So Mitchell Messenbrink continues to do what he does best, and he controls and he dictates the way he wants every matchup to go. His opponent has to adjust. He does not have to. And that's any sport, whether it's football, it's basketball, it's wrestling. When you can dictate what your opponent has to do and has to adjust and looks uncomfortable, you're going to be pretty successful in this case. And that's why Mitchell Messenbrink is in the middle. Unfortunately, those performances were just better under the circumstances here. You know, Messenbrink's not giving up 50 pounds, which is why Cochran's up there. But a 17-point tech ball is nothing to bat an eye at either. And Tyler Casack, again, ranking these matchups is difficult because everyone did so well. And it's not, Nagao ended up losing his match, but every one of them did so well under these circumstances. And I don't want to take away anything else from what people did. But in the case of Casack here, once again, you go out to Iowa, you lose to a top 15 wrestler in Caleb Bracci, and it's like, okay, this is going to be a learning experience for Casack, and to see what kind of emotion, what kind of discipline he's going to have as a true freshman, for another first-year wrestler within the program. Because if you're not disciplined, if you can get rattled pretty easily, and I'm not implying that Casack does that, that's the all better part of it, is that Casack hasn't shown any signs that he's going to mentally beat himself up. He bounced back in the right way and was able to handle his opponent accordingly. So Casack, to see that kind of growth, that discipline, that maturity out of a true freshman in the starting lineup, did not expect to be the starter. And Shane Van Ness might have been ranked a little higher at this point, but Casack still allows Penn State to be in the conversation to have that 10 All-American feat where everybody in the starting lineup finishes in the top 8. So Casack, even though he's on the outside a little bit of that top 8, could definitely, and young wrestlers, anybody, young athletes, young teams always get better as the season progresses. So Casack, Braden Davis, Mitchell Messenbrink. Mitchell Messenbrink's a second-year wrestler. these guys are only going to continue to get better and flash some more potential here. And that's why Kasich, seeing this, not getting down on himself, not letting the matchup before linger, is why this one gets placed where it does on my list. And then there's Braden Davis. Braden Davis, a back and forth matchup, top of 20 wrestler for his Nebraska opponent, and going to sudden victory. And this one, I feel like Braden Davis, ranked number 2 going into this matchup, going into this dual meet, has looked a little off, has not looked the same since DeAugustino of Michigan here. And Davis, I don't. We go to another controversial call versus no call, right? Gets away with one against Ohio State and Vinny Kilcarry. Another one here against Dean Peterson. May I remind you again, is a top 20 wrestler, and anything can happen when it's top 20, top 15, of course, top 10. But a ranked wrestler will prove to always be a difficult matchup. And I'm glad that Davis was able to take that in a sudden victory, and once again cling on to the victory, no matter what, no matter the circumstances, finds a way to be clutch. So unlike Kasich, who previous match, struggles, and remember, he did it kind of the same thing here, losing to Drake Ayala, and is able to bounce back accordingly. But it's also when you feel like maybe I don't know if I deserve this. There's no video replay here. Or the video replay showed something different to the referees when maybe to the spectator it showed something else. And Davis, no matter the circumstances, comes up clutch. And sometimes you just got to find ways to win. And that's what I take away from Davis's match, is that as a true freshman, he finds a way to win. It might not be the prettiest, it might not be the most glamorous, but he is finding a way to clinch victories. We still got 3 more bouts to get through. Bernie Truax, Bo Bartlett, and Aaron Nagel. I'll explain why these ones are lower on the list and talk a little bit more about Nebraska and what they're going to bring to Rec Hall as a top 5 matchup, and easily the toughest team Penn State's going to face this season. That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to its peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits to LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into that MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. And remember, if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest analysis around your favorite Penn State sports. And let me know what you think about Nebraska, as this one's going to be taking place Sunday in Rec Hall. Let me know down in the comments what you think. In this final segment, still have to go through Bernie Truax, Bo Bartlett, and Aaron Nagel. Talk a little bit more about Nebraska. And of course, on the way will be a full dual meet preview, breaking down every single head-to-head matchups for the 10 starters between Penn State and Nebraska. Bernie Truax, the reason I have this one a little lower on the list for Truax at 184, again, it takes care of business, but not an overly dominant victory. It was decisive, but the opponent exactly wasn't high caliber. This one was a freshman for Rutgers, and I felt like maybe a major decision was due, at least a major decision. A tech fall, a pin would have been nice, but Bernie Truax, who is a graduate senior transfer, has been an All-American at different weight classes, has been a veteran in the sport of wrestling. I was expecting more. And in this case, I think maybe he was saving something. Again, you don't have to pull out the entire arsenal to beat a first-year or second-year wrestler that's still kind of finding themselves at the collegiate level, at the Big Ten level. So Bernie Truax, just a good, solid performance. You get a shutout victory, 7-0, but something that is, I guess, not as memorable of a performance as some of the other ones were. And that same thing goes for Bo Bartlett. Bo Bartlett comes in at number 9 on this performance ranking list. And This one I want to focus on a little more closely because Bartlett, I understand why the performance happened the way it did. Why Bartlett ended up getting, a final takedown in a matter of the last seconds of the dual meet. I thought he was going to go to sudden victory, but that's good again to see. When you're a veteran, you just finish, you find a way to win, and that's what proves to be the number one wrestler. Look, he's coming off of matchups with Jesse Mendez and Real Woods, number 3 and number 2, respectively, right? And Bo Bartlett had lost to Real Woods a season ago, and now he exacts his revenge and gets that 7-2 victory out in Iowa. That's got to feel pretty good. Well, when you're on top of the mountain like that, this is in the case again. I tie this into any other sport because this is just across the board when it comes to athletics. When you're Bo Bartlett and you have to get jazzed up and get ready to go for these prime time, possibly a future rematch in a championship bout at this weight class, back-to-back weeks against Jesse Mendez and Real Woods. What kind of emotion, what kind of discipline? And I'm not saying I'm not saying that Bo Bartlett is undisciplined or anything like that, but your reserves are exhausted here, right? The emotion, the energy that is poured into the preparation for the top 3 wrestlers at your weight class is a lot different than, again, a rookie wrestler. So Bo Bartlett, kind of the same thing with Bernie Truax. This one was a forgettable match. He was able to win in the final 10 seconds, and that's great. You don't allow it to go to sudden victory. You don't allow Rutgers to build some momentum in this case. But still, in a case where your opponent, you're the top-ranked wrestler, your opponent is unranked and still new to the game, and you don't have a resounding victory in this case. So I will chalk that up to the fact that you're just coming off back-to-back matchups against 2 top 3 wrestlers, and 2 of which you will most likely see in a semifinal or a finals rematch at both the Big Ten and the NCAA championships. I do not look at this and say, wow, Bo Bartlett, you should be concerned about Bartlett because he wasn't dominant against this type of wrestler. No, not in the slightest. But I do want to point that out for maybe people who are concerned and saying, why didn't Bo Bartlett dominate him? That's not the point here. The point, again, you don't also have to show everything to a weaker opponent. Finish with Aaron Nagao, and Aaron Nagao ends up last on this list because of the loss, and the only loss in this case. It ended up being a decision and ended up going to sudden victory. And why I look back at this one and what I take away is from the fact that Aaron Nagao should have won. This was a winnable match. He was the better wrestler, even though. Now, I will say this. Aaron Nagao is the better wrestler, but in this bout, Dylan Shaver, who is top 10, wrestled a better match. Felt a little more aggressive, was a little more coordinated with the shots that he was taking. And I felt like at times, I never want to accuse a wrestler of laziness, but it just didn't feel like Nagao had planned, especially in sudden victory, right? Shaver simply kicks the leg back, dodges Nagao, and then just gets behind him for the takedown. And that's the way the bout finishes. And you shake your head at it. And like I said, Nagao is the more talented wrestler. But I think Shaver in that one, he tried to, it was cute. Shaver tried to shush the crowd and everything. And it's like, okay, I don't think you're winning another matchup. I really don't. Good luck, but you're probably not going to win another one. This is the only, and that was the case. But Nagao, I still, and when we've talked about this with Joe Smeltzer on the show as a special guest, and same thing with Jeff Byers, Aaron Nagao is going to be around. Remember, he's still a young wrestler in his own right, and Cael Sanderson says that he has all the potential in the world, and he's seen him progress so much in his first season as a Penn State Nittany Lion. But it's these matchups right here. Again, you're going to fit. You might see Shaver again in the Big Ten championships the way the bracket shapes up. So he's got to be. Nagao, remember, had the suspected illness and wasn't 100% over the course of these past 3 to 4 weeks here. But at some point, that can't be an excuse anymore. And once again, I will just go back to the fact that I felt like Nagao should have won that bout. He didn't. Shaver wrestled better in the moment, but still, both things can be true at the same time. Shaver wrestled better, wrestled well, but Nagao certainly had opportunities to win that one. And now let's pivot to Nebraska. Nebraska, top 5 team, decimated. Number 9 Michigan just a few days ago, like Penn State did to Iowa. Michigan, big fish eats little fish, and Michigan ate Iowa. Now Nebraska eats Michigan. Penn State also ate Michigan, and so these two forces are now going to come together and decide. And Jeff Byers has said this. Voice of Penn State Wrestling said this originally, that Nebraska was always going to be Penn State's toughest opponent, just simply because in terms of head-to-head matchups at each weight class, they matched up very well. And when I look at this team for Nebraska, there are a lot more toss-ups, and that's just the fact of the matter with who they are going to trot out at each class. 125 is a toss-up. 133 is a toss-up. 141 is going to be difficult, even though I would lean Bo Bartlett. That's still Brock Hardy is a top 10 wrestler in his own right. Tyler Kasak is going to have a challenge at 149. Peyton Robb, all right, revenge opportunity, because that's where Levi Haynes took that step forward as a true freshman. And now these two meet again. That's a top 10 matchup as well. 165, that is a top 15 matchup. 174, Carter Sirachi should be able to handle that. 184, Lenny Pinto is top 5. Bernie Truax is number 6, depending on what rankings you look at, but around the top 5, you're getting a surefire top 10 matchup. 197, of course, Aaron Brooks should handle that, even though Silas Allred is in the top 15. And then at heavyweight, Greg Kirkblade should have no problems against an unranked wrestler. But again, 125, 133, 141, 149, 157 are all going to be interesting matchups here in this case. So you have three guarantees, I would say, for Penn State at 174, 197 in heavyweight, and see, hopefully Penn State can pick up some bonus points there. But the rest of them, you want to hope that you split, or you take 3 out of the 5 in that case for the lower weights. I mean, it's murderer's row when Penn State gets to 165, 74, 84, 97 in heavyweight. Like that stretch, that second half of the lineup is so difficult. But if Nebraska can build some momentum in those lower weights with the first half of the dual meet, they can make this one interesting. And then again, you have to pay attention to 184 closely. Can Bernie Truax get this one, because he's going to be the underdog in this case? And I won't just, even though I believe that Mitchell Messenbrink is a top 4 wrestler, that doesn't mean I'm going to look past the top 15 matchup with Taylor coming into Rec Hall. So Nebraska, and then with the way that Nagal's wrestling a little again on a cold streak here, and then Jacob Van D, who's coming in as a top 20 wrestler, will most likely slide into the top 15. He's wrestling on a hot streak right now. It's again, you just got to watch for those. Same thing with Braden Davis. Braden Davis has struggled, or I guess hasn't been as dominant as he had been in the season. Again, some humbling matches here. Goes up against Nyala, and then a Vinny Kilkiri matchup where you don't know that he's exactly the winner, even though he does win by the referee's ruling. Regardless, these are not easy matchups by any stretch of the imagination. These are toss-ups for a good half of them. And I'm eager to see, again, Nebraska is going to come into this dual meet with nothing to lose. Sure, they're top 5, but Penn State is guarding everything. They are chasing Penn State records in individual program records. They're chasing historical records for all of the Big Ten, NCAA. Nebraska is a very talented team and knows that they can play spoiler in any sort of the sense. Do I think Penn State wins? Absolutely. But would I not be surprised if this one finishes within single digits, if this is a single-digit deficit or something close, maybe within a dozen, something of 9 to 12 dual meet points? This will be the closest dual meet of the season for the Nittany Lions. I can guarantee you that much. It's just a matter of, okay, is it 8 points? Is it 10 points? Is it 12 points? And that's where the bonus points are going to come into play. But we will not be disappointed when Penn State and Nebraska go up against each other in Rec Hall this upcoming Sunday. It's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, and a full dual meet preview is on the way for Penn State versus Nebraska, plus some interesting offseason conversations about Penn State football being constantly 10-2 and what Penn State has to do to navigate the new look Big Ten and everything. All of that and more is going to be here on the show. So keep it right here